One on mute.
Okay, I'll make a start. Thank you, councillors, for attending this virtual meeting of the Policy and Resources Committee. And also a very warm welcome to members of the public who are tuning in this evening. I've been having problems this week with my connection, so if I do tune out, lose connection, then I hope my vice chairman will be able to seamlessly come in and cover for me on any item that we are discussing. So straight on to the agenda. Item 1, to receive apologies for absence and acceptance. Any apologies?
All present.
Thank you, Joe. Item 2, to receive any declarations of interest. Councillor Shelton.
The Bingham Bowling Club and the Friends of Linear Park.
Okay, thank you for reminding me. I'll declare an interest myself as an associate member of the Bingham Bowling Club. I don't play bowls, but I have a membership card. I think it's a non-pecuniary interest, as I don't take any decisions on that venue. Any other declarations of interest? Councillor, Mrs. Stockton.
Chairman. Oh, yeah.
You're muted.
I do beg your pardon, I didn't realise that was on. Yes, I also am a member of the bowling club, an associate member with no pecuniary interest.
Councillor John Stockwood, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I'm an associate member as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other declarations of interest? As always, if anything comes to you coming as we go through the agenda, then obviously just raise it then. That's not a problem. Okay, item 3, to sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of July 2020, Appendix A. Are we all agreed?
Agreed.
I shall. Are there any objections that I sign them? No. Okay. I shall take that as your agreement. Thank you. At the next
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, I wonder if I could raise a point.
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Purdaharan. I know we don't always take questions from members of the public at meeting. I don't see anything on the agenda this evening, and I haven't had anyone inform me that they wanted to ask a question of Councillor tonight, but I just wondered if it was worth suspending standing orders for a few minutes to check, Mr. Chair, if any members of the public wish to raise any questions this evening.
Well, there is an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions and comments at full council. That is the normal procedure. We don't normally have questions at the beginning of the agenda of each committee. So if we stick with precedent, I would appreciate it. That said, it is within my prerogative to allow a suspension of standing orders if we reach a specific item that may be of particular interest to anybody. With the agreement of the committee, I can allow that. Okay. Item 4, to receive an update on outstanding decisions and consider further actions. I went through previous minutes of resources, and I think actually there are probably items that remain outstanding that could be answered by the town clerk, who is currently away. So I'm quite happy to leave that till the next time we meet, if there are any updates to be given then. Is there anybody that wishes to raise anything on that particular item?
Councillor Stockwood.
Councillor Wood, go ahead.
Thank you very much. So at the 19th of May meeting, we did discuss that we'd be looking to update the grants policy. I've discussed that with the clerk, but we've not had a draft come forward yet. Also on the 19th of May, there was a letter to be written by the mayor and the clerk regarding the lost income. That was the lost income. Rushcliffe Borough Council was making inquiries about whether councils had lost any specific income. I did send through some info to the clerk, and we discussed that in July. It did become apparent eventually that Rushcliffe Borough Council would be offering short-term loans if required. But as you'll see from the financial papers later on in this evening's meeting, the council is not in a position that we need a short-term loan for the amount of money that we've lost in income. The Borough Council needs to offset to demonstrate net biodiversity gain for the leisure centre development, and they've contacted the council with regards to whether we could be they could do that on town council property, and that work is, this was another previous decision of this committee, that work we would work with the Friends of Linear Park. The Friends of Linear Park have come up with some quotes, and I believe that they've been sent to the borough for to see if they would match the sorts of money that the borough would be looking to spend on net biodiversity gain. I was asked specifically to sign a letter regarding the good work plan. It's at a previous P&R meeting. I have signed that letter, and I'm just confirming that these actions have been done. Regarding the car park subcommittee, we discussed it with the clerk, and the next step is to clear the scrub from the site for the preliminary reports to be done. The clerk has advised waiting until the end of the bird nesting season, so we're now waiting for that to happen, and then to return to work from after a holiday, so we can progress that. We did submit the Cogley Lane LIS grant, but we haven't had any further information regarding that. And those are the matters that I picked out, which were particularly related to actions that were asked of the mayor, or were actions that I've seen that we haven't yet had an update on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And just with regard to the bird nesting season, my understanding is now that has ended. So whatever actions we come up with will certainly not be impacted by that particular rule. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Councillor Shelton.
Yeah, if we are clearing the site, could we clear the trees as well? So I believe the lime trees, and if they drop anything onto cars when we have the car park, it's going to make it a rather nasty insurance claim, from what I understand. So it probably would be a good idea to clear the whole site with the trees as well in that case, and then plant some trees elsewhere, or more suitable trees. It's not going to cause any damage to car paintwork.
Mr. Chairman, may come back for a point of information. The idea is just to clear the scrub so that we can get people onto the site to do a topological survey and to begin assessing the engineering works that need to be done. Because it's to be done, we'd be looking to do as little as possible to get the preliminary reports moving. You're quite right that the tree problems that are being left will continue until they're addressed, because it's difficult to build a car park around those specific, naturally grown trees at different locations through the site. But the immediate issue will be regarding getting the preliminary reports going, so we can work up our proposal for the whole site, and then we'll know exactly what works need to be done, and make sure it all gets done in a timely fashion if possible. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Shall we move on to anybody got any other questions before we move on to item 5? No, I'll take that. Is that a legacy hand there, Councillor Shelton?
No, I'm just going to
Recall
load
it.
it now.
Item 5, to verify accounts paid report to the 31st of August 2020, Appendix B. All agreed?
I think Councillor Purdahan, I've got one comment, and it's really around invoices 156 and 157, which are the HR fees to Castle Associates, which come to over £12,000, and in consideration of the fact that we will get another £5,000 HR fees on the agenda later this evening, I remain concerned at the level of expenditure we seem to be incurring as a council on HR matters. I think it's now approaching something in the order of 17,000 since I joined this council in May last year, which is enough to pay for another member of staff, I'd have thought, and I'm alarmed that we continue to keep accumulating these fees.
Point of information, Mr. Chairman, the two fees add up to £1,200, not £12,000.
No, but when taking into consideration with the generality of HR fees since May last year, Councillor Stockwood, you'll find we are approaching £15,000 or above.
I stand to be corrected then. However, we have a standing arrangement that we pay £3,000 every year, so there's clearly going to be an amount within that. But anyway,
well, we paid 5,000 towards the redundancy that we'll be looking at later on.
Right, can we just stick to this item, please?
Yeah.
So I'm happy to propose. Do I have a seconder to verify those?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Right. Okay. Anyone against verifying? Any abstentions? I take
Mr.
that.
Chairman,
as...
I'm still concerned about the procedure that was followed with regards to Councillor Lewis claiming some expenses outside of any procedure of the council. So I'll abstain. Thank you.
Right. Let me just explain that. We had an expense submitted. There's been a little bit of misunderstanding. It was approved for printing costs, and I think that's something we need to look at to clear up any further misunderstanding in the future. So it has been looked at and approved on that occasion, but I think we need further clarification moving forward. Okay, with no objections and no abstention. Sorry, there's one abstention.
So could I just raise a point on this? Do we have a policy on councillors' expenses? And we've certainly got one on travel and subsistence, and it doesn't sound excessive to me for a councillor to claim the cost of ink for his printer when he's incurred that in council business. I'm quite surprised at the level of the concern that Councillor Stockwood has raised in the fact.
Well, it's something we need to clarify, Councillor Wallace, and we'll try and do that in a measured way and come to an agreement. I think it's reasonable to have a clear policy on something at the moment that is completely silent, apart from travel expenses.
And the mayor's expense, of course.
And of course, the mayor's expenses. Okay. Right, thank you. Let's move on to item 6. And I have to confess at this point, and I'm not blaming anybody, I don't appear to have received Appendix C, D and E, F and G. But that's partially my fault. I've been too busy when I should have double checked before this meeting. So I'm going on. I'm hoping that you've all got copies of those appendices. So 6A to the 30th of June 2020 bank reconciliations, Appendix C. Okay, so everyone happy with those?
Yes, I've got the appendices you speak about. They were sent out, I think, with the agenda. I certainly received them, and I'm happy to move that we accept the bank reconciliations as correct.
Thank you. And 6B to the 31st of July. Appendix D.
Likewise.
Nobody's questioning those. And 6C to the 31st of August 2020, Appendix E.
And
Okay,
again,
no questions on those. All right, all happy to accept?
yes.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors.
Excuse me, Chair, I think we've got a hand up just before you move on. Councillor Shelton.
Councillor Shelton.
It's currently.
Councillor Shelton, are you able to hear us?
Yeah, number 98, Lily Park Insurance. That's the one I'm going to not comment on that one. So declared an interest.
That's on item 7.
That's for the insurance on Linear Park. Yes, okay. Thank you. Okay, all agreed on that one. Item 7, to receive the budget to actual expenditure to the 31st of August 2020, Appendix F. Any comments or questions on that? I take it with the silence that there is acceptance of that or noting of that item.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, item 8, to consider the Christmas lighting quotations, Appendix G. Any comments, questions or proposals? I believe this was forwarded to this committee from the Community Committee, Councillor Mrs Stockwood.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We've spent an awful lot of time discussing all these quotes, trying to get them to agree to exactly what we want. And the short answer is that Gala have come up with a proposal that exactly matches what we requested and are offering a reduced price for the 3 years. And I would recommend that we go with them and do the 3 years to say contract to save all the hassle, the several meetings and the negotiations that we have gone through this year. A 3-year contract would take it to the end of this term, and I propose that.
Okay, I'm happy to second. Councillor Shelton, did you wish to speak?
No, I just couldn't raise it. Forgot to lower my hand.
Oh, right, okay.
Councillor Purdahan, my apologies. Just in terms of the 3 quotes, which one is the one that we're recommending?
It's
The one from Gala.
2.
Yeah, I'm not sure which number that is. Is it number 2?
Number 2.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Before I go to the vote, is there anything that Councillor Mrs Hutchinson had a senior moment there? Did you wish to ask or comment on anything?
No, obviously I
Fine.
said
Excellent.
before. Glad you listened.
Right, it's been proposed and seconded that we go with Gala for a 3-year contract. Do I have any objections to that proposal?
Can I just raise a quick query,
sorry.
if possible?
Yeah.
We've actually got 2 options with Gala. They've given us the option of obviously going for the 1, 2 or 3 year. They have actually given us the option of going for a 1 year at the higher cost, and if we like it, going for the 3 year, and it will only cost us the 3 year amount. But if we don't like it, we can get out of it after a year. So I'm just being clear, if we're signing up for the full 3 years, or if we're going to pay the higher fee the first year and much lower the second and third if we like it. So I just want to be clear which one we're going for, because if we go for the 3 year, either way it will cost us the same amount. But if you go for the 1 year initially, there's a risk that obviously you're paying more money, but then you do have the option, if you don't like it, to walk away from year 2 and 3. So I just want to be clear what I'm saying to them when I go back to them.
Thank you. If I could answer that, Mr. Chairman. It is going for the 3 years. They've sent us exactly, illustrations of what they will be doing, and it matches what we asked for, which we've not been able to get from the others. And the cheaper price over 3 years will save the amount of hassle that we've had, the amount of meetings that we've had over this year. That was my proposal for the 3 years, please.
Yeah, that's an important point. Thank you. Okay, all those in favour?
Apologies, councillors. I am genuinely confused. So at the moment, looking at quote 2, the figures in front of me are 14,9770 and £8,000. Is that what we're committing to, or are there an alternative set of figures that we would be committing to if we've entered into a contract for 3 years? I genuinely can't understand.
Do you want me to clarify that?
Please.
Yeah, so if we go for just a 1 year deal, obviously there's a very large upfront cost for them to bring new items in. So that's without the additional items of the snowflakes and the pea lights, we're looking at just over 14,000. Okay. But if you take the deal over 3 years and have the same items for those 3 years, you'd be paying £8,320 a year. Instead, basically, because the cost of the lights is spread over the 3 years.
Okay, yeah.
Does that answer your query?
I think I follow that. Yes, I'm not entirely sure. But
so can you just clarify, Joe, that this year will cost £8,300?
£8,320 is what we've been quoted, because we would be minusing off the snowflakes because we can't put those on the buttercross as it's listed, and the extra pea lights that were quoted for as an addition if we wanted them. So yes, 8,320.
And the next 8,320 would be payable when?
Next year. So it would be as the lighting got put up next year. So
okay. Does that answer the query, Councillor Wallace?
Just to be absolutely clear, then, are we talking about 24,000 over 3 years? Well, just shy of 25,000, 8320 times 3, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, I've got that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Suspend standing orders, please.
Okay, is councillors happy to suspend standing orders to allow Mrs Hutchinson to speak? Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay,
Yeah.
agreed. Go ahead.
Sorry, it's actually a question for the Deputy Clerk. Joe, you just said there that the P lights aren't going to be included in what council are agreeing to. So does that mean that the large tree at the co-op is only going to have the drops on it rather than the drops and the lights?
Yeah, the P lights are another 1,220. So in the quote with the snowflakes and the P lights, without those, it comes up with 7840 without those items, 8320 with the P lights by the looks of it. So I'll clarify that, but yeah, it will be under the 83, and if we can get it with the P lights, I will. Just need to it changed when you had looked at it last week, didn't it?
Yeah, because
so just let me have a look.
The decision is either with the P lights or without them, but I think having the P lights on it is actually quite important.
Yeah, sorry, my mistake. Thanks for correcting me. It's 8320 with the P lights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. That's what I understood as well.
So
there's just one point to clarify, and that is, will the P lights be staying up? I think there was an offer at one time.
Yeah, he offered that it would actually be more beneficial to them, and it would be nicer for Bingham if the P lights could stay up all year round.
Yeah. That will illuminate that corner. Thank you.
Okay, can I reinstate standing orders, and can we now take the vote? All those in favour of the quote from Gala for 8,320 a year, including P lights, in favour?
Agree.
Yes.
Yes. Agree.
I think that's unanimous, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, item 9, to receive an update on the grass cutting equipment and to agree further actions, which is, I presume, a verbal report.
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you, Chair. The committee agreed that we had a temporary ride-on mower as ours has broken down on several occasions. It's £250 a week. We've just coming to the end of the 4 weeks that council agreed. So it's due off hire this week. What's also been happening in the background is we've had 3 demonstrations on vehicles, Shaboras, Kubotas and John Deere. We've had some initial prices through from one on our trade-ins, but we're just waiting for all the detailed information on all 3 that we've tested. It's obviously quite a big decision for council moving forward, and we're looking more towards a fully serviced hire arrangement, as well as looking at purchase prices for these machines. So rather than council rush into a decision that's quite large and obviously is going to be used for numerous years, a lot of the hire deals are sort of 3 to 4 years long. I would like, if possible, for council to consider hiring the temporary machine for another 4 weeks, so that we can see how we're going with the grass cutting. Depending on the weather, we may not need it past that. If we do, obviously we'll come back to full council in October, and it would be great to have a few councillors. I'm working with Councillor Williams, who has been obviously he's chair of recreation at some of the demonstrations, and I'm hoping to work with the chair of this committee as well, so that we can start pooling together excuse me, the information on moving forward with equipment ready for next year. There's quite a bit of trading value on a lot of the equipment we've got that's actually just sat there in different locations as well, so there's quite a lot that will come into this for council, so I don't want council to have to rush and make the wrong decision.
Okay, any questions, comments? Are we all agreed with that strategy?
Yes,
Agreed.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I think we have agreement there. Thank you. Thank you, Joe, for that update.
Okay, I'll extend the hire for another 4 weeks.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 10, to consider community grant applications and a donation request for humanitarian aid. I think actually we have a clear separation of what we could define as community grant aid from our grant aid funds and the humanitarian items from the Resilience Subcommittee fund. I'd like to take first item 10B, the Bingham Bullets Junior Netball Club application, because it seems to me that that is more of an application from our community grant scheme, because it's for items of training or items to purchase towards their activities. I was going to suggest that we consider £1,100 for starters. Any other comments or thoughts on that?
So, Councillor
Wallace.
Yeah, thank you. And I just wonder if, before we move on to the individual grants, and apologies for just taking a step back on here. I mean, I am absolutely keen to help clubs that are in some distress as much as we possibly can. I think that's a good thing for council to do. There's 2 things I find a bit difficult with this grant process, and the first one's a kind of, well, to me, an obvious one. That I can't see in any of the applications where it's sent out on the first page precisely what the organisations are asking for. So rather than, and this is a lesson for the future perhaps than for now, I'd like to suggest that in future when we get such applications, we ask the applicants to put on the front page of the application they're submitting the sum that they're asking us to provide, because otherwise it feels a wee bit of a, you know, a bit of a raffle. We've been through this before. The second concern I've got is that I tallied these up, and that my arithmetic may not be correct because I couldn't quite work out what precisely everyone was asking for. But if we agree to all of these grants to the full extent, I think the figure comes in somewhere in the order of about £17,000. Now we've got a budget left in the reserves of somewhere around about £19,000 or £20,000, taking into consideration the late notification we got from Joe this evening. If we spend all of that £17,000 at this point now, it leaves us £3,000 until the end of the financial year, and we've still to come through winter and a really potentially a very difficult time for our residents. So I'm genuinely a bit nervous about where we are with this and what our policy is. It might be too late to do it this evening, but I certainly do think we should be considering a bit more clearly what our policy is in the area, rather than just offering up a sum, with respect, Councillor Purdaharan, because I can understand exactly why you've approached it in that way. It's more of a general comment and some concerns I've got about how we best utilise the monies that are available for us for the use of the town.
That's a fair question. Thank you for that. You're quite right. I thought it did actually ask what or how much, you know, anybody would be particularly looking for, but you're quite right, it doesn't ask that. We also asked quite clearly for the latest accounts, and we rarely get those. But we do try to be helpful, but perhaps we need to tighten up on how we approach these particular requests. I think we perhaps set a precedent, and you could say we look at each application on its merits, but we perhaps set a precedent at the last full council meeting, I think it was, when we gave 50% to 2 sports clubs. So in fairness, I think we've got to try and stick around that sort of figure if we choose to assist any large items. But on this particular one, the first one, the Bingham Bullets, I think that is more a straightforward community grant request. I noticed on the email that they sent to the office, the lady who sent in the information indicated that she was told to inflate her.
So did I.
You saw that, did you?
Yeah.
So I'm a bit puzzled about that. However, they've listed the sorts of expenditure that they will be looking at, and I think it's reasonable for us to go in at around about 50%. I've said £1,100 because I think that figure was mentioned for specific purposes. So that's what I suggest on that particular one. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mrs. Stockwood, thank you. Did you wish to
Yes, I had actually
add anything?
I tried to get my hand up, but it doesn't seem to be working. So,
Okay, I've got.
Okay, it is raised. So it says, yes, I quite agree with what the councillor has said about the fact that, you know, we don't want to deplete this fund to the extent that all of these applications will bring in. I concur that, well, totally, fully agree that medical opinion is that we're going to have a difficult winter. So that's another point I agree with Councillor Wallace. It's too soon, I think, to you know, make these really deplete this fund. And so I'm happy to propose or second what you're suggesting, that 50%, as we've given those 2 sports clubs, is sufficient across the board I agree that Bingham Bullets does, come under our grant scheme, but the others, it would still leave us, I believe, if I've calculated right, around about half of the resilience fund left if we go to just 50%. And in view of a possible rise in COVID again, and humanitarian aid being needed, other groups have had funding which is also going down. So, we might be called upon to do more than we have done over the winter. So I'm seconding your 50%.
Thank you. We'll come to A and C a little bit later. We're just concentrating on the netball club. Did you have a comment, Councillor Shelton?
No, it's what I was going to say has been covered anyway.
Okay, thank you. If you could just put down your hand, Councillor Mrs. Stockwood, thank you. It's something we're constantly telling councillors to do at County Hall, so you're not alone. So it's been proposed and seconded that the Bingham Bullets Junior Netball Club, we give an amount of £1,100. Can we have a vote on that, please?
Agreed.
All those in favour?
Agreed.
Can I just clarify, Chair? So it's 1,100, half of what they asked for. So I'd got down 2,500. I just wanted to clarify the amount.
Has anyone got a different figure to me?
No, I think my pleasure. I can perhaps clarify. Yeah, the £2,500 is made up of 4 figures: 1,100 for the coaching course, 400 for the Crazy Catch bundle, 500 towards additional equipment and kit, and 500 towards hiring facilities. That's £100 shy of the 2,500. Oh, it's 1,100. It's exactly 2,500. It's 1,100. Yeah. Exactly
yeah. So it's whether you're funding the 1,100 coaching courses or the 50% of everything they asked for.
So, Councillor Purdaharan, might I make a suggestion? I do agree with Councillor Maureen Stockwood. I do. I'm very nervous about spending all of these funds at this point. Could we, to cut to the chase on this, accept the proposal that we accept 50% of all of the grants in front of us tonight, however that works out arithmetically, if Councillor content to do that, and we can go through them one by one. But could I also suggest that we bring this back as a formal point to the next committee where we set ourselves a proper policy in this area, because at the minute I think we are lacking on it, to be honest. But it gets us over the hump this evening.
Okay, you're proposing then that we do 50% across the board. We can't do that with the British Red Cross. We'll come to that a little bit later. But if it's in councillors' thoughts to approve a 50% approach, I won't argue against that. And I think to cover your point, in the past, it's worked reasonably well. We've always looked at applications on their own merits, mainly for capital equipment, to be fair. But I think, obviously, the unprecedented situation we are in, we are going to be receiving perhaps a lot more requests for help. And I think we've got to try and have a measured approach. And I do agree with going no more than 50%. We do fully appreciate the efforts that clubs and societies are trying to cope with the situation. But Bingham Town Council can't help them all with everything. We can really make a gesture. So if we want to go, bearing in mind that the Bingham Bullets is a community grant scheme rather than a humanitarian request, the Bingham Bowling Club and the Rosie May Foundation is for the Resilience Humanitarian Fund. Then if we're happy to go for A, B and C at 50%, do I have agreement with that? Are we all in favour?
Yes.
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 Agreed.
Can I just confirm, anybody just let me
Okay.
know if they
Any
don't.
object? Sorry, would you like to go through the list of councillors, Joe?
I can read through the councillors. I just wanted to check that I've got the figures down right, so we're all looking at the same thing. So the bowling club, 7861, 50% of that. 2,500 netball club, 50% of that, but that will come out of the normal community grant fund. And then Rosie May asked for £1,000, so £500 to them. I just want to confirm I've got the exact figures.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, if I just run through the councillors so I can just check with that, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Councillor Bird?
Yes, quite happy.
Councillor Perdue-Horan?
Yes.
Councillor Shelton?
Yes.
Councillor John Stockwood?
Yes.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood?
Yes.
And Councillor Wallace?
Yes.
Thank you, councillors.
Thank you. Item 10D, it is not normally practice to provide donations to charities, and I think other councils have got a policy on it. I'm not so sure we have, so we can take a view this evening. Obviously, we don't need any introduction to the Red Cross, and I'm sure they do their work in the Bingham area. So if anybody wishes to propose that we do or do not support them, I think we need to just take a view on this specific item without setting a precedent for other general charities. Well, first of all, in principle, are we for or against making a donation?
It's a genuinely difficult question. Personally, yes, I'm for it. Personally, yes, I am. But I suppose that the difficulty with charitable donations is that there is an element of choice around that, and it is a difficult question for councils. On this occasion, absolutely, without setting a precedent, I would have no objection. I don't really have a figure in mind. Have they asked for the specifics on some? My apologies. I did read the correspondence, but I don't think it made any suggested sum.
Just a general letter.
Yeah.
That's the views of one councillor. Anybody else? Councillor Stockwood? Did you say?
I'll start the ball rolling at £500 donation.
500. And where from? I suppose from the Resilience Fund, is it?
I believe that the British Red Cross work, and particularly it's not in the normal community grant fund that we're looking at. It's more the work that they've done through the pandemic. So I would say £500 from the humanitarian aid.
Do you have a seconder for that?
Seconded.
Okay, so it's been proposed and seconded. Do we have any objections or abstentions? No. Are we all in favour for the proposal for a £500 one-off donation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I proposed it. So.
Are you happy with that, Joe?
Yes, I can clearly see.
Seems to be unanimous.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to consider a grant application from the Community Heartbeat Trust charity, Appendix I.
Councillor Stockwood.
Now you remember, clocked you. You'll remember we were told 4 years ago that we would have no liabilities in the future. However, here we are. Councillor Stockwood.
I do remember that we were told we wouldn't have any liabilities, but apparently we do, and it's in a prominent place within the town centre. I believe the offer, my understanding is it's £135 per year with a minimum of 4 years. So I move £540 as a grant for the 4-year cover or support for the continuation of the for defibrillator in the telephone box in the Market Square. Thank you. I move that.
Can I just ask Councillor Owen Bird? We have the option to go for as we go or something rather than the contract. How long do batteries last for?
Generally 4 years, and it was replaced last year.
Right. So we're looking at £540 over 4 years if we go on a £135 a year.
Every time it's used, the pads need to be changed, and I don't know their specific cost, but they're somewhere in the region of £50.
So it's a reasonable deal then.
I think so, yes. There are 2 others in the centre of Bingham, but the more there are, the better it is. It has been used, to my knowledge, at least 3 times, and once at least successfully. So it has saved a life.
Okay. Right. Okay. Well, as they say, you can't put a price on life unless you work for NICE.
So I want Councillor Purdahan, please.
Sorry, Councillor Wallace.
No, it's fine. I mean, I would support that. My own father died very suddenly of a heart attack when he was 51. I was 22 at the time, and I've never forgotten it. So I've got a personal interest in this sort of stuff. But yeah, if it saves a life, that's fantastic. But my point is that it doesn't quite feel like a charitable donation. It feels more like we're adopting the ongoing maintenance of the cost of the defibrillator, and I'm not sure it's really appropriate to treat it as a grant application. Now, again, I might be wrong procedurally on that, but it just doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like a charitable donation. It feels like an adoption of the ongoing costs of the machine, if that makes a difference.
I accept that because we pay insurance for Friends of Linear Park, for example, which doesn't come under donation grants. What does it? Can't remember now.
It does.
So, sorry, Joe.
It does at the moment. Yes, that's where it says.
Well, can I suggest then we do put it under the grant scheme for now, and if we decide to rejig it in the future, that will be another decision.
Yeah, I'd be happy enough with that.
So I'm assuming, Councillor Wallace, that you're seconding Councillor John Stockwood.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been proposed and seconded that we go with £135 a year to support this valuable assistance. All those in favour?
Agree.
Yes.
Agree.
Any objections? I don't think there are. No. I think that was unanimous, Joe?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Item 12, to note the National Salary Pay Award from the 1st of April 2020, Appendix J. Any comments or questions? That's just really for noting.
Noting, isn't it? Yeah.
No, thank you. Thank you, councillors. Item 13, to receive a reserve report to the 31st of August 2020 and consider the 3-year spending plan, Appendix K. And I congratulate Joe for creating the busiest A4 sheet I've ever written, squeezing it all onto one sheet.
Councillor Purdahan.
Councillor Wallace.
Thank you. I have read it and I'm happy with it, and I'm happy to recommend it. And yeah, it was nicely laid out.
Yeah.
Read it with a magnifying glass.
Are there any questions
I'll
or
send you the
comments?
Excel
Councillor
document.
Stockwood.
Go ahead.
So we're still in the transition from the old reserve headings, which were just the names of revenue budgets to a action-led 3-year reserve plan, which is the bottom half of the table, where we actually name projects and seek to give them values. So the sheet would be less busy when we move away from the old codes at the top and fully embrace the 3-year reserves plan, which sets out what we intend to do with reserves rather than just have open-ended budget names. So I would, if it's very easy for councillors to simplify the chart by getting rid of the old stuff and fully embracing the 3-year reserve plan. Within the 3 years reserve plan, and that's what we're looking at right now, there are, as we move forward from the pandemic and hopefully get back to our council's projects, we have some big risks in what we're looking at in the way forward. Our original commitment to the 3 play area development was £100,000. That means that for the Cogley Lane development, the final one of the 3 play areas that we're developing, we're planning to develop, that's coming up, we're looking at over £100,000 in grants to come in for this final project. Looking around, I do see a lot of grants being converted into coronavirus community activity grants rather than traditional purposes, as people want to see that money is used for the, this very particular circumstances that we've all had to live through. So looking forward, winning those £100,000 grants might be something of a challenge. What I'm receiving as mayor, I seem to get a variety of people advertising services to me, simply because my name's on the website. But there are people contacting me regarding about their ability to help us get grants, perhaps on a no-win, no-fee basis, or for a fee in doing that work. Considering the scale of the grants that we need to win, as we move forward, there's a number of challenges in the reserves plan. I think it perhaps be a good idea if we arranged that the chair and vice chair of the committee did try and engage some of these grant consultants as to whether or not they can offer us a service to help us win some of the large amounts of grants that we're looking at. Throughout the reserve strategy, we're moving on. The linear park bridges, that's an initial sum for an investigation. If there were identified considerable costs for repairs to the bridges, that would be an unplanned cost that we would face in the future. With regards to the open space security project, again, we have an initial figure, and we're using that work money to, first of all, for Orchard Park, because there's some security improvements we want to see in that park. But there's also works to be done on the western boundary of of the land we own on the western edge of Bingham, and also works to be done at Wychwood Park, where they're wanting to put in something perhaps around the edge of the site to discourage children from running into the road. It's a very active park at Wychwood Road, and some people have some concerns about maybe we should put a bit of a fencing in around that edge to slow the children down. Wychwood Road does have, since the extraordinary meeting the other week, an extra £5,000 possible contingency coming forward that may be used, and so that again increases the money that will be spent on the play area project. And then there are any sums that we decide to pursue with regards to the land acquisition proposals that will be considered later tonight, with regards to the confidential valuations that we've had done regarding some pieces of land that are of particular interest to the community. So I'd just like to highlight that there's actually quite a lot of pressure on our reserves, and that's before we start on our the big priority, the car park. So we do need to be aware that there is that pressure, and perhaps some work to try and win some grants for particular projects could be beneficial. And so I'd like to, note the reserves. I encourage the committee again to move to a 3-year reserve plan, setting out exactly what they want to do, and consider this forecast on a regular basis so that we plan how we can use our reserves and the different ways of funding that we have to deliver the things that local community wants. And I suggested about the grant consult that we have some try and arrange some meetings to find out what kind of offer is being made by these people who can help us get grants. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stockwell. Are there any other questions or comments from councillors? Councillor Wallace.
Thank you. Much of what Councillor Stockwood has just said, I do agree with, actually, and I'm mindful that we should have a proper 3-year plan in terms of how we finance the council, and we will be under some pressure going forward. I maintain that I think the document is well laid out and it's nice and easy to follow. Can I just urge a word of caution, though, in terms of some of the offers that are made by people who will offer to get us some grant funding, and please, Councillor Stockwood, I mean this in the very best sense, and I honestly do. We do have to be slightly cautious of that. One of the things I happen to see in my day job on a fairly regular basis is our businesses and individuals holding themselves out to get people refunds of tax, income tax and various other taxes, and they can take up to 50% of the funds that go back to the individual to offer that service. All those people know what you need to do is contact HMRC and they'll get 100% back of the money with very little effort on their part at all, indeed. So yes, by all means, let's look at them. Let's do that, but let's also be mindful that sometimes the offer that's put forward isn't to with absolute advantage. One of the questions that I've got in my mind around that actually is, and I don't know if Joe's able to help with this, is there any assistance we can get through something like NALC with applying for grant funding? Joe, are you aware of any offer that they might make since we're already subscribed to them?
It's something that RCAN, that we're now members of, can potentially assist us with, and also we do get the funding bulletins through from RCAN and NALC that tells us all the grants available. We've had one through this week, I think it is, that tells us all the grants that's currently available to councils and what they can potentially be used for. So I'll get that list circulated to councillors tomorrow if it's not been done already, but certainly we're members of RCAN, so it's something we could touch base with them on as well to see what assistance they could give us.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't think there's any action on that to vote. I think we just note it, really.
Yeah.
Okay. So item 14, to receive a recommendation from the Resilience Subcommittee for the purchase of a chair, which was £499. This was a request via Helping Hands to assist a disabled couple who found themselves in a very difficult situation with nothing to sit on. So it was recommended that we would purchase an armchair, which was desperately needed. I don't know if, I suspect not all councillors are aware of it. Is there any update you can give us, Joe, on that?
I believe a member of the public that's with us tonight from Bingham Helping Hands has made arrangements with regards to the chair. All members of the Resilience Committee, as you emailed, were in support of this. But as we're a little way from full council and we're reviewing the funding tonight, just wanted to bring it to committee as policy and resources, so you're aware of the expenditure, and if we could make a recommendation from the committee to support the resilience purchase of the chair, please.
It was a genuine humanitarian request, which I pose. So can I have a seconder, please?
Seconded.
Councillor Mrs. Stockwood, thank you. Are we all agreed with that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much for your support, councillors.
Thank you.
Item 15.
Chair, would it be possible to ask a question on the next item, please?
On item 15.
Yeah.
We've had a request, councillors, from a member of the public to ask a question. Do I have your agreement to suspend standing orders?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, I'm happy to suspend standing orders, Mrs. Hull.
Thank you very much, Chair. Can I ask what is the value of this invoice that Bingham taxpayers are actually paying for? And can you tell me what the period of consultation time is that's covered by this invoice? Thank you.
Right, well, what's happened is I think I did receive some appendices, and what happens with my system is some councillors dive in and send statements or questions to the office, and then they end up moving my emails around. So I have actually found the early appendices, Joe, so I apologise. You did actually send them to me, but on this occasion it was Councillor Wallace that attached a message to it, so I wasn't able to find it. So I'm not blaming you, Councillor Wallace, or anything, but that's what's happened. Can you confirm, Joe, the total of that invoice, please?
Yes, of course. The invoice is £4,452.50 plus VAT, which of course the council can recover. So the total is £5,343.
And your second question was regard to the consultation period.
Yeah, when exactly is that £4,500 been spent? Was it this year? Was it earlier in the year? When is it? When did it start and when did it finish?
So council made a decision. Well, I'm not so sure actually I need to answer that question at the moment. I'll have to give you an accurate answer if that's okay.
Okay.
Because it covers a period of months.
Right. Yeah, it covers a period of months.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you therefore answer, do you expect any more invoices coming through? Because that's an awful lot of money that could really be used in a different way.
Forgive me, but I do remember you spent an awful lot of money when you were a councillor in charge of HR matters. And you weren't so concerned about the cost of it then.
That's because we didn't have an HR committee, wasn't it?
Really?
Yeah, this is consultations from outside the council that's costing us money. I'm just asking, are you expecting more invoices on top of what we already have? Simple question.
That's a possibility. I can't confirm or otherwise at this moment in time.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair.
All right. Okay, I'm happy to propose that, Joe. Do we have a seconder?
Councillor.
Reinstating standing orders, please.
We'll reinstate standing orders. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, Councillor Wallace, you've got a question, but I'm just looking for a seconder first.
Second it.
So Councillor John Stockwood, second. Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, thank you. As a member of the Policy and Resource with the rest of us some responsibility for the financial running of the council, I did put 6 questions to you, Councillor Purdo-Haran, which is perhaps the reason why you haven't been able to find the email, and my apologies for writing to you if that's what's happened. And the questions were...
A separate email.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Precisely how much was the invoice for? Is it part payment invoice? Is it the totality of the anticipated expenditure? A copy of the relevant invoice, a copy of any correspondence to support the level of expenditure incurred, a copy of any contract the council has entered into with Ellis Whittam to which the expenditure relates, a copy of any correspondence of whatsoever nature between Ellis Whittam, Bingham Town Council, its officers or individual councillors to which that correspondence was addressed, and so on. Unfortunately, I've not had any response to that, and I think it is quite appropriate for a current councillor, especially a current councillor on policy and resource, to ask for that information, given the responsibility that sits upon us. Now, I'm disappointed I didn't receive a response. I did, however, receive a response from the mayor, where he proceeded to tell me that he was blocking my account and would no longer answer any of my questions. Just to point out that that memo wasn't even addressed to the mayor, and his response to me was quite surprising, if I'm honest with you. But I think they are reasonable questions to ask. It is over £5,000. On top of the expenditure that I outlined earlier on to Castle Associates and the additional expenditure we incurred last year, all in HR issues, the amounts involved are becoming considerable now, and they are not normal run-of-the-mill business as usual items of expenditure, and it does continue to give me concern, both as a member of the Policy and Resource Committee and as a member of the Council.
Okay. Thank you for that. We've had a proposed and seconded. Do we have any objections?
No, we need to pay it.
Okay. Abstentions?
Yes, I wish to abstain on this.
Okay. Joe, can you go through a list of the councillors, please?
Yes, of course. Councillor Bird.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Francis Persia-Horan.
4.
Councillor Shelton.
4.
Councillor John Stockwood.
4.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
4.
And Councillor Wallace.
Regrettably 4.
Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, councillors. That is carried. Item 16, to consider the monitoring officer's letter dated the 14th of July 2020, A, to agree actions to take the council forward, and B, to consider an independent governance review. Appendix L. I hope you've all had an opportunity to read the letter. It has come before council previously. Are there any suggestions or comments or questions?
Yes, may I speak?
Councillor Bird.
I'm just wondering why this just doesn't go to full council. I appreciate this is a policy committee, but I think this is such a serious matter that it really ought to go straight to full council. And really, it's where full council, where this should be debated.
Well, Councillor Bird, if the late Councillor Davidson was here, he would politely explain to you that we don't make policy at full council, only in extreme circumstances. And you're quite right, this is the policy committee, so we would be making a recommendation to the next full council if we choose to make a recommendation this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Did I see Councillor Stockwood? Councillor Stockwood, yep.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Prior to 2015, when the independents took over, this council had a quality council award.
Yes.
Because we demonstrated to the public through a set of measures that were which were assessed that we met the standards expected of a local council. The new scheme is called the Local Council Award Scheme, and I believe that the way forward is to again demonstrate to the public our commitment to improvement by achieving each level of the LCAS awards over the next 3 years. So we'll be looking to achieve Foundation Award in the year ahead, Quality Award the year after, and then Gold Quality Award in 2022, 2023, I think. So I think we know what the there's a scheme. It has clearly defined targets and a method of assessment, and we can by applying for that scheme and working through that scheme, we demonstrate to the public that we're meeting the standards expected of a local council. So I would like to see the council go back and win back its quality council status, or LCAS as it's now known. Thank you.
And that's a proposal, I take it.
Yep.
Any seconders for that one? Councillor Shelton.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
So, Councillor Purdoharan?
Yes, Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I mean, I have no objections to that as an aspiration for council. I think we should be a good council, but I think we would be, and I include myself in this, I think we'd be kidding ourselves on if we were to think or consider that there weren't issues with council as it is at the moment, and we are barely functioning as a council for a variety of reasons. And I suppose that both myself and Councillor Stockwood are between us the progenitors of this letter, for want of a better word, I think. So I think it is incumbent on us to consider the recommendations that the monitoring officer has made in there. Personally, I thought it was quite a sensible letter. I thought the recommendations she made were made in the best interest of council to take us forward, and I can't see any particular reason why I would object to any of those. You know, she recommends that the proper officer of the council is given her correct standing in the council, something that hasn't necessarily happened in the past. She recommends that perhaps ACAS should be involved to improve the employment practices within Bingham Town Council, and I think that is an issue. It's certainly an issue for me. She also recommends that perhaps there should be some mediation between, I would say, perhaps myself and other councillors, and I would have no objection to that either. But let's not kid ourselves on. Things are not good in Bingham Town Council just now, and I take no pleasure in saying that. I thought her recommendations were eminently sensible, and in fact, I've written to her to tell her that. And I've also pointed out that, like Councillor Bird, I was extremely disappointed that when it came before full council, the first thing we did was put it to policy and resource. And my feeling at that time was what we were doing was kicking it into the long grass. And having listened to the recommendation this evening that all we do is go for a council award in 2 or 3 years' time, that strikes me as exactly what's happening. So I would propose that we take the 4 recommendations made by the monitoring officer set out in pages 4 and 5 of her letter forward back to full council as a formal proposal to move forward on that basis. I don't think it can do us any harm at all.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. Any other comments or questions? I'm sorry, Councillor Mrs. Stockwood.
Yes, I just wanted to propose, along with Councillors Shelton and Councillor Stockwood, that we do go for a quality award. I was privileged to be the mayor at the time when we did get quality status years ago, along with Radcliffe-on-Trent. Both of us got it simultaneously. And it is something which will incorporate the things that Councillor Wallace is suggesting. To go along those lines means that we will achieve things, and all our actions over this first year and a half of this term have been to try and improve this council. So I'm fully in favour of the first proposal proposed by Councillor John Stockwood and Councillor Shelton, which is what we should be speaking to, actually. Thank you.
I wonder, Mr.
Can I?
My apologies.
Mr.
Yes, thank you. I don't think the 2 points are mutually exclusive. Councillor Stockwood, I don't think there's any reason why we wouldn't go for that award. And in fact, I began my contribution by saying exactly that. So I don't think they're mutually exclusive proposals. I think there is, we should be speaking to this proposal. I agree. I think there's a secondary proposal that can be made, should I be able to get a seconder, that we also take forward the recommendations made by the monitoring officer. So if you want to move us to the vote on the first point, I'll present the second proposal on a second, because I don't think they are mutually exclusive on this occasion.
I was going to add to Councillor John Stockwood's proposal for B that we don't say no and we don't say yes at this stage because we haven't been given any costs. And clearly people are exercised about costs. So I think we need to be absolutely clear on that in the future. So if Councillor John Stockwood will accept that we agree to his proposals, we vote on his proposals on A, and we also add in B that we may consider in future an independent governance review and keep the situation monitored. Is that okay with you, Councillor John Stockwood?
I accept that amendment.
And I'd
Thank
be
you.
very happy to second Councillor Wallace's proposal.
Okay. I think Councillor John Stockwood, you put your proposal first, so we will vote on that first, and we will vote if Joe reads out the list of councillors, please. So we're voting firstly on Councillor John Stockwood's proposal, seconded by Councillor Shelton, to agree actions to take the council forward in working towards a quality award scheme, and not to take any action at present regarding an independent governance review. And keep that under review itself.
I read councillors' names out. Councillor Bird.
I'm going to abstain to that.
Thank you. Councillor Francis Purdy-Horan.
For.
Councillor Shelton.
For.
Councillor John Stockwood.
For.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
For.
And Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to abstain too.
Okay, that is carried. Therefore, I don't think there's any point in putting the other proposal forward.
So, Councillor Purdy-Horan, I don't think those two things, we are not talking about two items that are mutually exclusive here. So I don't think the alternative proposition falls because the first proposition was passed here. So we're talking about going for an award on the one hand, and we're also talking about what we do with the monitoring officers on the other. And regretfully, if you take that view, then all it does is add fuel to the flames, that rather than trying to tackle the issues that are before us just now, Policy and Resources choosing to kick them into the long grass, which would be regrettable. And I say that as a progenitor of the issues themselves.
So just for the interests of clarity, could you just read out what you are proposing to be voted on?
Yeah, I'm proposing that there are 4 recommendations set out in pages 4 and 5 of the monitoring officer's letter, and that we proceed to we make a recommendation to full council that we go ahead with those proposals as a way forward to solve the position that we have within Binghamton Council currently. Does that help?
Okay. We'll vote on that. Do you have a seconder? I think Councillor Bird, was it?
Yes, you do have a seconder.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, councillors. Councillor Bird.
For.
Councillor Francis Purdy-Horan.
Against.
Councillor Andrew Shelton.
Against.
Councillor John Stockwood.
Against.
Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
Against.
And Councillor Tony Wallace.
For.
Thank you. That proposal falls.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 17.
Are we going to respond to the monitoring officer to tell her that, or are we just not going to bother?
Well, we're putting a recommendation to full council.
Well, we won't be now, will we? Because there's no recommendation. You've voted against it.
We will give a recommendation to full council, and we will respond to the monitoring officer, I presume, from that decision, which is on the 13th of October, I believe.
What recommendation are we putting, Councillor Purdy-Horan?
Yeah. Okay. Are you happy with that? Are we clear on that?
No.
Okay.
Clear but not happy.
Clear but not happy. Yes, that's what I meant to say. Okay, item 17. We now move on to confidential business. Public Bodies Admissions to Meetings Act 1960 to resolve that in view of the confidential nature of the business about to be transacted, the press and the public be excluded for the remainder of the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings this public session of this Policy and Resources Committee to an end, and we will now be moving over to another link on confidential items. Thank you for your attendance this evening and participation. Good night.
Thank you, Chairman.